Welcome to Focus Today. I'm your host, Perry Atkinson, and of course there's a lot going on all over the world, and especially in our own nation's capital. And I'm really honored to have with us today a friend that's been way too long since we've talked to him. Jim Dornan's with us today, and Jim is a Republican strategist there in Washington, D.C. He's been involved in politics since Hector was a puppy, and he's been around. So we're Skyping him in from the big city there today to find out a lot of what's going on. As you may or may not know, tomorrow's a big day in Washington, D.C. They're going to have a military parade. It is the 250th birthday of the Army, and also happens to be the President's birthday, so a lot going on. Jim, good to see you, buddy. How are you?
I'm great, Perry. One thing, I think the aliens are in Portland.
There you go. Good to see you. A lot going on. Well, just to let you know, Jim's been through a personal test. We've been praying for you, buddy. Good to see you. You're looking healthy.
Thank you, my friend. I appreciate it. It was a tough few months, but I made it with the help of the good Lord, and he's obviously not done with me yet.
Good for you. All right, so what's happening there tomorrow? How's it coming together?
So you'd think it was the inauguration. In fact, a lot of people have been comparing it to. The fences are up, and there's going to be a lot of military hardware there, and they're putting down rubber on the roads because Lord knows what's going to happen to those streets with those, million-pound tanks going through it. And there's talk of some protests, and it's not by the normal people who protest Trump. It looks like it's going to be military veterans right now. They're not happy about this at all, and so it should be a very interesting weekend.
Why are they not happy? Why are some vets not happy with it?
Well, I think they believe that the president is using them for purposes other than what they should be used for. And Trump may be making it political. And the one thing about the armed services is they do not like being political pawns or used as political pawns by anybody. And so I think they're slightly ticked off at that. There is scheduled to be a protest with military men and women. And the parade itself isn't until 6:30, which kind of makes me curious as well. But it's going to rain tomorrow, so maybe ultimately that was a good move to start.
Okay. What do you think the president's message is in doing this?
Well, I think he wants to show strength not only for the country, but also for him. You mentioned it's his birthday. And say what you will about Trump, there are some things that indicate he wishes that the presidency were more like a dictatorship. I can see arguments for that, and I can see arguments against that. And it should be interesting how this is viewed when it's all over. But that's what I think he wants to show strength. And given what happened last night in Iran with the Israelis, the timing may not be too bad. So it'll be interesting. I mean, it's been very kind of pins and needles here in the Capitol since the beginning of the year, and there are a lot of things on these politicians' minds, and it's crazy. I mean, it's absolutely crazy.
Of course, you walk the halls of Congress, and the margins in the House are very tight. I mean, the Republicans have it, but not by much. How would you describe this session?
Well, so far, the Republicans have been basically doing what the president wants them to do. And the Democrats are doing very much what they were doing in the first Trump administration. And people are on their side are wondering why you're doing this, because it's not working. And it's not. I mean, Trump almost seems to have a Teflon coating, much like people said Reagan did. But it's very nervous. Let's put it that way. And Trump is automatically a lame duck at this point. So he's going to try to get everything done quickly and then not have to worry about it. And so he can enjoy 3.5 more years in the White House.
What's your take, Jim, on the deployment of the National Guard in Los Angeles? I mean, this is kind of interesting because the president tried to nationalize the National Guard. And the appellate court yesterday said no to that. But isn't the National Guard under national authority?
Eventually, yes, but they are first answer to the governors of each state. And, this is what kind of confuses me too, and makes me question kind of some of the things that are being done under the Trump administration. Republicans as a whole and historically have always been very pro states' rights. That goes back to the beginning of the Republic. And for a president of the same party to attempt to take that power away strikes me as very odd. I mean, we like local control. That's the difference between the Democrats and the Republicans. Democrats are more of a national government kind of running the show, and Republicans support more of a state by state governor or executive running the show. And so I think the Marines, sending the Marines in, or the National Guards in, is insane. That magnifies a problem that is not there. Yes, I do know that Trump and Newsom don't get along. That's fine. But doing things basically because you don't like somebody or you don't like what they think is not the way this country is run. And we should find more ways to get along and come to the same conclusion. I mean, nobody wants rioting in the streets, but there was not. Okay, there was a little bit of an indication of that happening in LA, but I think there are easier ways to solve these problems than sending in the military.
The other thing is Republicans are. Well, let me just ask you, as a Republican strategist, how are they responding to all of the president's attempt to equalize trade?
Okay, that's going. I don't think it's going the way that Trump planned on it. I mean, he had a formula in his head, whereas this country collects a bunch of money from tariffs and we stick it into a separate bank, and then Trump, doles it out to taxpayers or uses it to build industries or rebuild industries in this country. As a free trader, and again, going back to Republican principles, that doesn't work either. Because first of all, the countries are not paying those tariffs; importers are, and then the importers, then they're passing it on to the receivers of the goods, who are then taking the higher price and adding it on at the end and charging the consumer for it. Mm-hmm. So this is not the way it's supposed to work, and I'm not sure if Trump ignored those basic rules or said, well, let's try it my way and see if it works. But there are economists on both sides of the spectrum, or all sides of the spectrum rather, who are going to say inflation is due to rise. And that will be an absolute killer for Trump and his legacy, which is what I've got to think is first and foremost in his mind right now. Because if they have inflation after all the things he said about Biden, about inflation, I'll leave it at that for now. But it's not going to go well, and it will be playing basically into the Democrats' hands, in my opinion.
In the meantime, he's pulled a lot of those tariffs. I mean, he's used them as agents to get people to talk, and he has reduced a lot of those tariffs. Doesn't that kind of offset that a little bit?
Somewhat, yes, but he keeps changing them, and then he makes changes to his changes. And so we need some consistency, and I hope that the deal that they say he has with China right now, and some of the other folks around the world, Britain, you name it, I'm hoping that this kind of gets a little bit more steady, and we're not waking up to a market going insane over new tariffs or, new tariffs changing into other new tariffs. I think we've got to kind of wrap our arms around it and settle it. And I know he's got good advisors who are doing that, but sometimes he just wants to go on his own. I mean, that's why he's been successful.
I only got you for one segment, but let me jump over to here we are heading down the road to the midterms. What's your feel as a strategist?
Well, there are a lot of people aren't aware that there are two states that have off-year elections, and they are Virginia and New Jersey. Um, New Jersey is a very, very Democratic state, so the Democrat winning the governor there would not be a surprise at all. Virginia, I think we ought to keep an awful close eye on. We have a very strong Trump-supported candidate who's a Jamaican woman who served in our military, who is lieutenant governor and will probably be the Republican nominee. And then on the Democratic side, we have a very moderate former member of Congress, former CIA agent, and gets along very well, who, if she wins, I think there are going to be all kinds of repercussions from that, because it's just as Virginia and there's nothing else going on. They get too much attention, but ironically, a lot of it actually turns to be the case in the next off-year election in 2026. So, and the key in Virginia will be the state legislature. They are both the House and the Senate in Virginia are as close as the House and the Senate are federally. So there will be a lot to learn from that. The one disadvantage that the Republican has is that Trump, did a clean sweep, or as close to a clean sweep as he could, on federal workers. And in the 3 counties that surround Washington, D.C., in Northern Virginia, there are 150,000 federal workers. My guess is they're not going to be voting for Trump.
Is the RNC raising money for 2026?
Yes, they should be. I mean, if they're doing their job. And I know Richard Hudson very well. He and I were staffers together on the Hill. He's a congressman now from North Carolina and chairman of the NRCC. And he is out beating the bushes for money. And it's going to take it. It's going to take it. If the commercials I'm seeing on TV every day now are any indication, people are really going to be sick of political commercials by the end of the year.
Wow. What's your take of Speaker Johnson?
You know what? I'm one of the few people who has really not, come up with the conclusion. He's carrying out Trump's orders, which is a big part of what the speaker's supposed to do. He seems to be getting our guys together on this, big beautiful bill that everybody's been talking about. There's a slot in there that lowers the taxes in blue states, and it's a long story why. I'll just leave it at that for right now. And then the red state congressmen do not want to reduce that at all, which is also ironic given the Republicans' views on taxes. But secondly, oh, sorry, I lost my train of thought for a quick second. My apologies. They have to get the blue state Republicans and the red state Republicans to agree on that in order to pass the bill, because, as you mentioned before, there's a very small difference between both houses. And so if that big, beautiful bill is getting passed, there's going to have to be a heck of a compromise coming. And I think Johnson might be able to do it.
One quick last question, Jim. The Democrats seem to be auguring down. They don't seem to have a sense of direction. They've got a lot of problems going on. They need a leader, and they don't seem to have one. What's your take on it?
That party is a disaster right now. They can't agree on anything. The far left basically lost the election for Kamala because she was so focused on transgender issues, which I don't know anybody where that's at the top of their legislative priority list. And she wouldn't back off from it. And in fact, at the end of almost every NFL game this year, Trump had an ad out that had her with that quote saying, "Yeah, I support taxpayer money going to prisoners who want to have their sex changed." That's insanity. And so he ran the ad at the end of every NFL game, which was perfect because those guys are going to go to the polls after they hear something like that. So they've got to get off of that. They got to get more towards the middle. As I mentioned, the woman, Abby Spanberger in Virginia running for governor, she's very moderate. And they've got to learn that extremes on either side are not going to win anybody any elections.
Does Newsom survive this nonsense?
There are folks that are saying it's elevating him. So I'm very curious to see how this happens. Now, he's been a disaster from the standpoint of the homeless problem in San Francisco, and all the stuff going on in the streets there. Same with L.A. he'll be in the top three. Does he win? I don't know. The problem for both parties this cycle, and I know I'm going on a little bit long though, is that they are looking for both parties are looking for a Trump, and he doesn't exist. It's going to have to start completely over.
Oh, interesting. Hey, good to see you, friend. You're looking good. Let's stay connected.
Absolutely, 100%.
All right. God bless you, pal. Take care.
Thank you, my friend.